2.1, Algebra 1, we're going to begin solving equations with one step. So we're now going to be solving equations for an unknown variable. Remember that variable, whoops, sorry, put that back. That variable is a letter, such as x. Could be any variable, any letter. We will be using our properties to solve equations. And you remember those properties: adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, associative, commutative, those kind of things we'll be using. Your goal is to isolate, which means get the variable by itself on one side of the equation sign. Most people want to have the variable on the left, but you don't have to. You should be, get used to having the variable on either side of the equation by itself. But we'll practice to start with on the left. All right, we must have a positive variable when we finish. This is important, okay? If we don't have a positive variable, we have different properties we'll use for that. So for our first example, we're going to have, I'm going to write it big, x plus 3 equals 10. Okay, what I like to tell my students when we first start learning how to solve equations, this equal sign, you should think of it as a wall. Okay, this part is one part of the equation, and this part is another part of the equation. Part A, part B. You want to separate. You don't need to, but that's part A, part B. Now, we want to have that variable, in this case it's x, all by itself on the A side, by itself. So whatever's with that x has to go. So right now we have a plus 3 on that side. Now, in order to get rid of that 3, we have to do what is the inverse. Okay, so what is the inverse of positive 3? Negative 3. They undo each other. So we're going to do this vertically. I think it's easier to see. And when we do this, we're always going to be adding. All right, so now we have 3 minus 3, which is going to make 0, so they just completely go away. So x is by itself. And then we actually do this, 10 plus a negative 3. Well, 10 plus a negative 3 is 7, or 10 minus 3, either way you want to look at it. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. If I had a negative 3 to start with over here, then I would add 3 to both sides. We have to balance the equation. So whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. And now when I say side, I'm talking about over the other side of the wall. Okay? So this problem, x becomes 7. Now, we need to check our answer. Okay? Let's see. If I plug in 7 right here for x, that's 7 plus 3. Does that equal 10? Let's check. 7 plus 3, well, that's 10. Does that equal 10? Yes. So that means it is correct. Okay? So that's what you're going to do with one-step equations. You may have multiplication and division in your one-step equations. Let me see if I have another screen. Yes, I do. Okay? Say we have 2x equals 20. All right? There is no addition and subtraction. There is just multiplication. Because remember, I told you if it's a number and a letter together like that with no plus or minus in between them, then that means multiplication. Well, the opposite of multiplication is what? Division. So in order to get rid of this 2, I have to divide both sides, here's my wall, by 2. Now notice I put a division bar, okay, so I know that that's what I'm doing. Dividing by 2. So 2 divided by 2 makes 1. So that leaves you with 1x, which is what we want. And then 20 divided by 2 is 10. Okay, and again, go back and check your work. I'm going to take the 2 and I'm going to put parentheses and I'm going to plug in to check my answer. This is where I plug in. Okay, so x is 10. 10 goes right here. So 2 times 10 2 times 10 is 20. Does that equal 20? Yes. So that checks. You need to get in the habit of checking your work. Make sure you have them these right. And that is simply one-step equations. All right, so that's what we're going to start with. We will be adding more and more steps to the problem. So remember, the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of multiplication is division, and vice versa, guys. Because you may have a division problem, then you'd have to multiply both sides. Okay, if you had a subtraction problem, then you'd have to add to both sides. Just remember, we have to keep the equation balanced, otherwise it completely changes the problem, and that is not what we do in math. All right, so definitely come see me in the mornings if you have problems with this. This is like some of the foundation for what you'll do the rest of the year. So let's fix this now if you're having trouble, and I'll see you in class.